Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to EonsOfBattle. Shiny metal, how do you do it? I have a bunch of metal paint that I'm not putting to good use, so I think it's time we run a little science experiment. And stay tuned to see a montage of painted models courtesy of the EOB Complete community. I don't know how one achieves the metaliest metal, the chromiest chromes. I paint a lot of metal, and usually I'm using either standard acrylics like GW, Army Painter, and Vallejo, or if I'm feeling feisty, I break out the Vallejo liquid golds. Regular acrylics are just gray paint with a little bit of metal flakes thrown in. They're super duper easy to use, but they don't have the richest luster. Vallejo liquid golds, on the other hand, give an amazing metal luster, but are a huge pain in the ass to work with. My Black Templar have regular acrylics on all their weapons, and it looks alright, but I do love how much the Vallejo liquid silver makes my orc weapons pop. But I don't know which paint is the best of the best. I even have some Rattle Can Metallic, and Vallejo's new acrylic metal color airbrush color. I want to get to the bottom of this, so I'm going to be doing a controlled test to see which of these is the best of the best. I have 4 paints in front of me, so I'll need 4 identical models, and I bet I have them lying around here somewhere. These are models I have not seen in a very long time. These will make the best shiny metal test subjects, Terminators, and not those Terminators, James Cameron's Terminators. What could be better for testing metal than the frightening metal exoskeletons from one of the best sci-fi horror movies ever made? I love the Terminator movies, both T1 and T2, and I can't wait to get these bad boys painted up. But what am I talking about? These guys aren't ready for prime time? What channel do you think you're watching? These puppies need bases. I want my model's bases to look exactly how I remember the crunchy destroyed Earth from Terminator 1. With the Terminators walking across a barren gray landscape covered in skulls for some reason. No other bones, just skulls. So that's what I want to replicate with my little old bases. Now to do what I want to do, I want to create little hills and valleys of terrain, and I should be using Milliput really, but I don't want to, Milliput's expensive. I want to see what I can try and do with some tinfoil. I've used it before for bigger things, but I bet I can make it work. Got my bases, and I'm super happy with how they came out. I think they look spiffy, and I'm really happy with how tinfoil worked. I think that this is super easy, super cheap, super efficient, and I think this is going to be going into my repertoire of adding elevation to the base. This is going right up there with Crayola Model Magic, soft squishy modeling material, and original Gorilla Glue. My bases are done, but I'll have to give them a little while to dry before I can put on my Terminators, so I'll be back. My bases are dry, so it's time to glue down my Terminators. And so I need my tools. And I hit the edge of the base with a quick blast of nail file just to knock off any sand that hangs over. Why be careful when you can just fix it all later? And I don't know what kind of sand they use in this this texture paste, but it sands away pretty smooth. I wonder if it's actually like super fine crushed up walnuts or something. All right. And I was wondering why I didn't glue on any of the arms, and it turns out that my hindsight really was 20/20, because when I glue them on, that's really gonna tell me how to glue on the guns so that they're straight up and down. If I had glued them before, they probably would have been all out of whack. So, yeah, just about like that. And then there's not a whole lot of contact between his foot and the base, and I'm gonna fix that using some baking soda. So I can just pour on some super glue and then dust on a little baking soda, and it'll build up material instantly. There, it's 1 Termi down, 3 to go. Now really the perfect way to attach a model to the base is by pinning, but these guys have tiny little feet and it would take too much time, and I don't want to. All valid reasons to use a drop of super glue instead. Got my boys glued down, and now it is time to finalize all the poses. The arms aren't glued, the heads aren't glued, and so, time to fix that. Now I could use plastic glue if I really wanted to do a good job, but do want this to dry pretty much instantly, and I don't think I'm gonna be doing much gaming with these, so I'm gonna stick to the tried and true super glue. These models are fun. The details are very soft by wargaming standards. These are from a model kit, but they look good enough. When models are all built, glued, and based up, that's when they really start to get exciting. It's almost time for painting. I can barely contain myself. Time to get these suckers on to some painting handles, and then we can start the show. I think I want to start with the spray paint, because I have a suspicion that's going to be the worst one. But you know what? Maybe something surprising will happen. First, these guys need to be primed up. So, time to break out the airbrush. I'm priming these guys with my airbrush, but I could just as easily do this with a rattle can. Got my 4 Terminators, I got my 4 weapons here, and I'm pretty sure that the rattle can probably gonna do the worst. I think really what it's gonna come down to is which is the winner, Vallejo acrylic airbrush paint or the Vallejo alcohol paints. And I don't know, I feel like the regular old Runefang steel could surprise me. But please leave a comment, which one do you think is gonna win? But before we chrome up these models, the one thing that is always shiny is our Patreon. If you enjoy our content, the best way to support us is by becoming a member of our Patreon. Over there, you'll gain access to some behind the scenes, voting on what models I paint live on YouTube, a hobby hangout live stream every week, and more. With that out of the way, let's paint some metal. The rattle can really blasted the Mini. I tried to go light, but the velocity the paint came out at really just doused the model. The alcohol paint went on great. It always does, but it's a pain in the butt to clean the brush and get rid of any water that could contaminate the delicate metal paints. The airbrush paint was surprisingly rough to put on. Probably this trouble was caused by trying to cover the black primer with light silver color. It still looked good in the end. The Runefang steel went on flawlessly, a little thinner, and it covered the model in one smooth coat. Woo! All right, let's see these suckers. They all look like Terminators. They all look like the T-800 back from the future. There's quite a range. I am shocked at the results. They were all pretty good. I'm most shocked at the spray can. I thought, number one, I thought it was gonna be a mess because it's a spray can, but I thought it was also gonna be very gray. One thing you see a lot with spray paints is that they tend to have like a lot of filler color and then just sort of a texture thrown on top. Like when you're using a hammered finish, usually it's just a regular color and then they just throw in a special effects paint. And so I thought this was just gonna be gray paint with a special effect like glimmer thrown in there. You know, it'd probably look great if you sprayed it on some pots for plants that go in your front yard, but this is not bad. I could put this on a Mini and work with this. This is pretty good. It's very shiny. It's a little bit reflective. I think this is really nice. The Vallejo liquid metal. Love this stuff. I've been using it forever. I think I've gone through an entire bottle of it and I'm on my second bottle. Very, very good stuff. I use it on a lot of my weapons, like my orc weapons, but it looks particularly striking on this Terminator. But I was wondering, with this new product from Vallejo, the acrylic air, I was wondering if this was going to replace it. And I don't know if it does. It's still very, very good, but it looks nearly identical to the spray can. And that I did not expect. That is really neat. I think there's still a place in my paint bucket for both colors. Unfortunately, I was kind of hoping to replace it because the alcohol is such a pain to work with. But it is still a little extra shiny. And then the paint where I wasn't sure exactly what it was going to do, the regular old acrylic, Games Workshop Runefang Steel, it looks great. Put it through the airbrush, it went just fine, and it went on, it's not too thick, it's still very shiny and reflective. I think that's a great choice. I think all of these paints performed really admirably. They all look great. I'm a little bit surprised at how well some of them did, but I think I won't know for sure which paint is the best of the best until I get a little bit more finish on there. On these guys right now, it is not the final coat of paint. I'm gonna be putting on some washes and some different colors to try to get the metal to really pop, but I'm really pleased with how they look. To paint these models, I wasn't sure what wash I wanted to use, acrylic or oil. I decided on acrylic because I wanted to work fast, and there was a slight grit to these models that I wanted to disappear, and the Nuln Oil will be a little bit more forgiving. I slobbered the paint on and it worked like a charm. I moved on to the model with spray paint and uh-oh, the spray paint was completely hydrostatic. The wash was just beating up, no good. But I was not ready to admit defeat. I broke out the airbrush and gave the model a coat of matte medium, to hopefully give the wash something to grab onto. And it worked like a charm. The wash went on properly after that, but the matte coat did dull down the shininess of the spray paint a little bit. These models really are the perfect test models for this project. The wash really brought out the metal death robot in them. Not every model takes a wash so well, but these guys do. I mean, look at that head, before the wash and after. Da-dun dun da dun. Da-dun dun da dun. Now these guys are nice and shaded, but they lost a little luster, so it's time to bring that back up with some dry brushing. I took some Runefang Steel and prepared my dry brush, saturating my bristles and then wiping them dry. For models like these that need a lot of paint deposited by dry brushing, I really like a dry brush with long bristles. I find that they leave a little bit more paint on the model than short bristles. In no time, these guys were shiny and chrome. To really achieve that chrome look, I needed to add in some color. Chrome usually has a blue look. The thing about chrome is that it's a mirror and that blue is the reflection of the sky. That look is classic and easy to fake. Now I'm going to use one of my favorite hobby cheats, some Badger Minotaur Ghost Tint Blue, but you could also replicate this by mixing together some acrylic paint, gloss varnish, and water. The Minotaur Ghost Tint flows through the airbrush beautifully and tints the metal a slight blue. I use this sparingly. If you really go for it, you will turn the model bright blue. Just a misting is what I'm after. This is probably not too far off from how the Terminators were made for the film. The real Terminators were painted resin props. Next, it was time to apply a little color. I put some red, gray, and tan on my wet palette. Red for these Terminators' evil glowing eyes. Why would their camera eyes glow red, you ask? Because they're evil. Just a nice drop of red on each lens. It ended up taking a few drops to get the fully saturated bright red look. And like that, the Terminators were finished. Now, onto the base. I used that light gray I put on my palette to lay down a base coat. The Terminator world is nothing but ash and skulls. Then I watered down some tan paint and spread this onto the base, making it patchy so that a little bit of the gray was left showing. And I made sure to hit the skulls. And speaking of those skulls, I thought they were a little drab, so I quickly dry brushed some pure white to bring some nice attention to them. Then it was time for a wash, and as much as I love Games Workshop washes, they're a bit pricey to throw on a base, so I made my own, using black paint, matte medium, and a lot of water. I applied this to the base, and it looks like I ruined everything, but it'll lighten up dramatically as it dries. With the bases done, the only thing left to do was to paint the rim of the base black. Well, all the models are finished, and I must say I am shocked. They all look great. Every single paint did great, and some of them surprised me a little bit. The spray paint and the Vallejo metal color almost indistinguishable in the outcome of the paint jobs. They really are identical. I think if I had to pick a winner, and I do, because it's the video, it is going to be Vallejo Liquid Silver. I think this is a little bit shinier, and this made the thinnest layer of paint, which I think helped a lot because the model's details are a little bit soft. And so I think this is the winner. But, I think really, for the Wargamer, I think just stick with normal acrylic. I think you don't have to waste your time with any of these other specialty paints because really, how often are you looking for a shiny, shiny metal to your paint jobs? These guys look fantastic, but they are a very special case. 90% of the time, you are not just trying to get a shiny chrome metal. You want a metal that works alongside wood, cloth, leather, plastic, or bare skin. And for that, I don't think any of these specialty shiny metal paints really work. These Terminators are great, and were a fun project to try out all the materials I've collected. But in the end, they all look the same. And no paint was far and away the winner. For me, going forward, it'll probably come down to, if I'm looking for perfection, I'll go with the Vallejo Liquid Silver alcohol paint. And if I'm in a rush, normal acrylic paint through the airbrush works just great. One thing I discovered while painting the Stormcast Eternal is that getting the perfect metal luster is not really what you want. I sprayed this model down with Vallejo Liquid Copper on top of bare, shiny plastic to get a flawless metallic finish. But then it was really hard to go on from there. I had to work to not get any other colors spilling anywhere I didn't want, and it was difficult to add in my darks and highlights to the metal with acrylics. It was a really difficult paint job. If I had just started with a classic zenithal and worked my way up with acrylics, I think this model would have been better for it. So if you're wondering what shiny metal paint to buy, I would say skip all of this stuff and just buy your regular old acrylic metallics. Learn your way around these. These are going to be paints you're going to use probably every time you paint, and these are going to be very specific cases where you break these out. But now I know exactly what paint I need, and now I have 4 wonderful Terminator models. I feel like I need some more models from the 80s. Maybe a RoboCop or a nice Predator. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what are some metal paints you've tried out, and if you've had some successes or failures. But now it's time for the real star of the show, EOB Complete. We put out a challenge to our community to send us before and after photos of their recently finished models to be immortalized in our videos. If you want to join in the fun, you can submit a before and after photo of your painted mini to our Discord server, which you can find in the description below, or you can post it to Instagram with the hashtag EOB Complete. Without further ado, let's look at and get inspired by what the folks have finished this week. A Tau Devilfish by Mahalis, a Primaris Space Marine by Unfathomable Entity, a Primaris Gravis Captain by CDR Keller 21, a Night Haunt by Stinky Pete, a half squad of Guardsmen by Bagpipes Man, a Chaos Terminator by Katie 1984, some Cosmic Frogs by Alex Smith, some Orcs by Dark Drake 5481, a Black Templar by Commander Cade, a Typhus by Warm Pot of Paint, a Dagny Holdenstock by Coravan, a Belisarius Call by Tenastus, a Skeleton Knight by Cherry Goblin, an Imperial Guardsman by Sacramentum, a Primaris Librarian by Aldous, an Adventurer by Disco, a Bellicor by Max Void, some Stormcast Eternals by Wandering Dingus, a Custom Space Marine by Ravi, some Poxwalkers by Barry, some Faces by Just Make Stuff, some Space Marines by Trent, a Scorpec Disintegrator by 40k Guy, a Tech Marine by Omegon, and an Orc Gargant by Nick. Congratulations to everyone for a job well done. It's no small feat to get paint on minis, and you all should feel really proud. Nothing gets the hobby juices flowing like a finished project, and we all thank you for sharing your work, motivating us and the hobby community to paint our plastic. Thanks for sharing.